the right now is all Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, and the left is all Ilhan Omar and and AOC, and it does a profound distorting disservice to actual debate in politics. But I do want to push back, and part of this is devil's advocate on a couple things. One, I would, like, if I were arguing with a left-wing identitarian and they said, well, we always had white identity politics, I don't think that's entirely true in this country. The definition of who was white was a moving target for a long time in the 19th and early 20th century. The bohunks of, and the Jews and my people who came off boats, they were not generally considered white, by a lot of people. But the more important point, is, like, I've been on this kick for a while. I love intellectual history. Spent my life reading intellectual history. I'm not saying intellectual history is not important. I know you come as training as an intellectual historian, but you keep saying that wokeness or whatever the identity trap or identity synthesis is a new idea. And longtime listeners to this podcast know is that I have increasing skepticism of any claims that anything is a new idea. New branding, sure, right? New concentration of facts and context, sure, right? But I'm kind of with Calvin Coolidge in his 4th of July speech, where he says, and I'm kind of with Francis Fukuyama on this, is that I do think that, broadly speaking, liberal democratic capitalism really was, in an important way, the end of history. And virtually all of the new isms that people come up with, including a lot of the ones that are now old, Marxism, fascism, Nazism, these are all different forms of reactionary thinking. And so identity politics or identitarianism is a very old idea. It takes many forms. I mean, de Maistre is the guy who says about the Enlightenment, I've met Russian man, I've met Persian man, I've met this man, I've never met this creature called man, right? There's this idea that the iron cage of identity. The people that you engage with in here, and I think you do a fantastic job, but from what I've read, I got drenched in this stuff in college. I had more Foucault than Federalist Papers. I did Derek Bell. I did, we didn't even call it critical theory. We just called it theory because, like, the only theories you were allowed to talk about were all this stuff. And so when woke comes around, I'm like, this all rhymes with the stuff I learned 15, 20 years ago, now 30 years ago. And so the reason why I'll stop monologuing in just one second. The reason why I think the new idea thing is dangerous, and this is less an accusation at you than it is at just the way the dynamic always works, is the left comes up with what they claim to be a new idea. The right takes them at their word and says, oh, well, this isn't just political correctness. This is something completely new that we, in our new Saul Alinsky fever, have permission to abandon all of our old responses to it, right? So, like, there's this whole context on the right now that wokeism, or this jackass who's the chairman at the Claremont Institute, calls woke communism, whatever the label is, it's all nonsense, right? And I don't like wokeism, but it's such a novel threat that the old fusionist conservative arguments, the old liberal arguments, are inadequate. And so we have to respond fighting fire with fire. And then the right says that, and it gets back to this dialectic thing. The left says, look, these guys are rejecting all the norms. That gives us permission to triple down on our rule breaking. And that's how you get this vicious cycle. And if everyone could just sort of say, hey, look, industrial policy, not a new idea. Identitarianism, not a new idea. We have answers to this. The classical liberal philosophers spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff, and they think it's a bad idea. It's a siren song. It's a trap, as you put it. Let's not do this again. And yet we do it again and again, and the things get worse each time.